I can't express how honored I am that I get to stand here today and share some of my work with all of you. So first of all, just thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone who has helped to make this conference possible today. And I appreciate that you trust a kind of film and communications guy to give such an important presentation today. So while I am someone who has a deep passion for the outdoors and our environment, I am certainly no expert in water quality, like many of you. I am not an expert in data analysis, not even an expert in environmental sciences as a whole, for that matter. But what I am pretty good at is merging natural sciences with storytelling. So that's exactly what I'm going to be covering in today's presentation. I'm assuming I have the control here. Beautiful. Oh. There we go. So now I gotta go. Cool. So I wanted to start the presentation here with a bit of an overview of what I'm going to be talking about for the next 45-ish minutes or so, probably a little less than that, so don't worry. I'm hoping this will be a little bit of a post-lunch pick-me-up that can launch us into the second half of the conference here, but we'll see how it goes. So first I want to start with an introduction, just a little bit about me and the work I do, and I think that'll help give some context to the rest of the presentation. And then I'd love to talk about the Chesapeake Tales campaign, which is a pretty extensive marketing campaign that the film is a part of. And next we will watch the film. It's a short film, about 16 minutes, and we directed and produced it last year, so 2022. And that'll be the exciting part of the presentation. And hopefully everything goes well with the electronics here, but we've got our fingers crossed. After that, I would like to come back up just for a little bit more to talk about some of the results from the campaign. There's a lot of positive results, and I think there's some success that's worth celebrating that I want to talk about. And then I would love to end with talking about the power of story, and even giving you guys some tools and tips you can keep in mind that'll help you with your science communications on a daily basis. And then we will do a Q&A as well at the end. All right, so in 2019, my brother and I started an outdoor media company and cleverly called it Breaker Bros. We created a mission statement to use the power of outdoor storytelling to spark sustainable change. And with that, we started our journey and created our first project together, which was the short film called A Journey Upstream. And you can see the poster of it there in the top right, or top left of the screen, sorry. A Journey Upstream kind of told, or really showed the connection between fly fishing and conservation. And it told the story of how two fish, which a lot of you are probably familiar with, the brook trout and the striped bass, help to teach us about the connectivity of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, but really kind of about the connectivity of the environment as a whole. And to be completely honest, this film was a lot more successful than we had anticipated. And it kind of launched both of us on our career paths. And since then, we've had the opportunity to work with just countless amazing organizations, all in the environmental and outdoor space. Now, one of those organizations was the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, and they happen to be perfectly in line with our mission and a few of our projects. So since then, I've actually been working with the Alliance for a little bit over a year now. And I'm essentially the visual storytelling specialist. And when I say visual storytelling, I'm kind of encompassing video, photo, filmmaking, and I have the privilege of traveling around the watershed, interacting with just some of the coolest people and elevating our conservation work on a weekly basis. So in 2022, we received a DM, which for those of you that don't know, that stands for direct message, on this little social media platform called Instagram. And it was from a guy named Andrew who worked for a nonprofit organization called Fly Fishers International. And he had seen our film, A Journey Upstream, in 2019 and wanted to pitch us on an exciting opportunity to take the journey further. So cautiously optimistic, my brother and I, we scheduled a call, and he pitched us on a pretty crazy idea. They wanted to create a fairly extensive marketing campaign to showcase the beauty and diversity of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, while also kind of showcasing for anglers the accessibility to all these amazing fisheries you can find throughout the watershed. And he wanted that campaign to consist of a physical magazine, an entire season of a podcast, a 7-part video series, and as a little cherry on top, a short film to be entered in festivals across the nation. So after that overwhelming delivery, he hit us with a classic line that I'm sure none of you have ever heard being in the environmental space, that just like a heads up, we're a relatively small organization, so the budget's not really there. But unfortunately for us, he had already sold my brother and I on the idea of the campaign. He wanted the Breaker Bros to direct and produce the video series and the short film with the premise of 2 brothers who have 7 days to travel over 1,000 miles throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed in an old camper van, stopping at 7 different fisheries, interviewing experts, and fishing along the way. So just to give you some context, a short film, kind of a normal short film, a relatively normal amount of time is about a year to create a proper film. So we really should have stopped and had a conversation about, is this going to be physically possible to pull it off? But I think the 2 of us were just too excited about the fact that we got to travel in this camper van together and fish for a whole week. So we said yes. And in hindsight, I have no idea how we got it done, but I'm sure glad we did. So I would love to show you all the short film we produced after that very hectic and memorable week. So Chesapeake, A Love Letter to a Watershed, is presented by Fly Fishers International and sponsored by Cheeky Fishing and Costa Sunglasses. And it features music from local artists throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So I hope you all enjoy the film.
My brother and I grew up in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and we've always wondered exactly what it was that makes this place so special. After creating a short film about the connectivity of this watershed, we decided to take the journey further. So we grabbed our fly rods and camera gear and climbed into an old camper van named the Green Machine. Over 1,000 miles, 7 days, in one watershed. This is Chesapeake, a love letter to a watershed.
Let me tell you about the heartland, that's my Pennsylvania home. Where the mountain laurel blossoms miss the blue rocks all road. On the Appalachian Trail, springs are cool and clear and sweet.
My name is Kate Fritz, and I have the honor of serving as the CEO of the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. Chesapeake Bay, to me, means catching crawfish in West Virginia. It means fishing in lakes in Pennsylvania. It means wandering around the wetlands of Virginia. And it means this whole area. It means where I grew up, where I moved around a lot. So when I think about Chesapeake Bay and I think about the future, I think about how critically important it is for my generation, for the next generation, to protect and do everything we can in our power to restore it today to a future where it's sustainable and it's healthy and we're not afraid to access it.
My name is George Daniel. I am from Central Pennsylvania. I guess you can call me a fly fishing instructor. I make a living teaching others how to fly fish. I am currently the director of the Joe Hunter's Fly Fishing Program here at Penn State University. The Chesapeake Bay watershed is incredibly important. So many of them, basically my playground where I play, all those bodies of water dump into the Chesapeake Bay. And to have a clean, viable Chesapeake Bay often means a clean and good playground for me to go out and fish. Not only me, but also being a father. It's a place where I want my kids to eventually go. And even with my students at Penn State, I want them to have the same opportunities to go out, travel, explore, and just really understand what amazing features and resources that this state and that this resource can offer them.
We were lucky enough to time up our short visit with the infamous green drake hatch, surely the most prolific insect hatch that either of us have ever witnessed. After our previous day, chasing beautiful Pennsylvania brown trout and experiencing the legendary green drake hatch, we packed up camp and drove southwest with big native brook trout on our minds.
My name is Dustin Wisterman. I'm the Associate Director for Trout Unlimited's Mid-Atlantic Cold Water Habitat Program, and we're sitting out in my backyard here in Pendleton County, West Virginia on Seneca Creek. Since I've been here at TU, I hit 10 years last week, and I have personally watched streams go from dead to 3 or 4 different age classes of brook trout. I like to say that I have a dream, and that dream's about 20 inches long. One of these days, I want to see 20-inch brook trout moving throughout these systems fluently like they used to be. The Chesapeake Bay watershed means 2 different things to me. One, and it might be surprising to you as we're here in the headwaters, it's my livelihood. And 2, it's connectedness with people throughout a landscape. And that is a very special thing. Seeing the efforts of the different folks up and down this watershed, all focused on improving the system together, is just one of the most inspirational things to be part of that you could ever imagine.
While we were sad to leave Dustin and colorful brook trout behind, we were excited that day 3 allowed us to stay in wild and wonderful West Virginia to target some of freshwater's hardest fighting fish.
I'm Pamela Dunlap, founder of Women Wine Waders and co-founder of International Women's Fly Fishing Day. Here in West Virginia, we have over 20,000 miles of lakes and streams. You can cast your line in wide open spaces or a small, dense blue line stream. We have it all going on here. It was a secret, but I believe our secret is out. So if you're not fly fishing West Virginia, you are missing something spectacular.
Hi, I'm Mark Condor, your Shenandoah River Keeper and part of the Potomac River Keepers Network. What's unique about smallmouth fishing is that if you can master smallmouth bass fishing, you can fish saltwater, you can fish freshwater, you can fish anywhere. And so by mastering that fish, you can go anywhere in the world and be successful in fly fishing.
The Chesapeake Bay watershed means quite a bit to me. And you know, we have been very fortunate to fish these waters and have pretty good quality of water. And we need to improve that for our future generations and make sure they have what we've enjoyed through our years of fly fishing.
After a not-so-brief hiccup with the green machine, we traveled east, away from the mountains and towards busy streets and tall buildings. We were going to fish the Forgotten River for one of the watershed's most controversial fish.
My name is Paul Drew with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Government, and I am the Anacostia Restoration Program Manager. The essence of cleaning up the Anacostia watershed, its relationship to the Potomac River, its relationship to the bay. You've got this river that's in the backyard of the Washington Monument, Arcade, the Arcade Stadium, the Washington Capitol. It's a river system that we need to clean up because what we do here affects the Potomac River and it affects the bay. So the Chesapeake Bay to me is a giant playground. There's no other place that I know that I've been to that you can go catch saltwater fish, cobia, my favorite Spanish mackerel, and within a day literally turn around and go up, way up in the mountains and catch cold water species.
After day 4, we continued our journey south towards the ancient Virginia swamps. Our goal was to target a prehistoric fish species that date back to the Jurassic period, more than 70 million years ago.
My baby put snakes in my bed. I woke up with one crawling around my head. I went walking down by the swamp.
I'm Grant Alvis. I'm a full-time UPS driver and a part-time boatman addict.
Oh, oh, she must be a dime. I can tell, I see her
If you're a sport fisherman, I don't know how you don't love a boatman. It's like fishing a prehistoric, literal living dinosaur that has a mouth made of nothing but bone.
Not my time to die.
So Chesapeake Bay, to me, it's probably cliche, but it's home. I mean, I've lived here my whole life. I've fished just about every river, tidal river that flows into it on the west side, and even out, fishing the mouth of the bay and the ocean from, every species from the Atlantic Ocean all the way up into the brook trout streams west of here. The Chesapeake Bay watershed is what I've always known.
With 5 full days of back-to-back fishing, filming, and traveling, we felt like we were hitting a wall. But luckily, the anticipation for the last 2 days got us through. You see, the freshwater portion of our week-long journey was now over, and our next stop took us to the southern limits of the watershed, where we targeted some of the bay's true giants.
I'm Zach Hoisington. I'm an environmental educator and fishing guide on Chesapeake Bay. Of all the fisheries in Chesapeake Bay, cobia fishing is definitely at the top of my list. It's probably the most exciting for me because most of the fishing I'm doing for cobia is sight fishing. They're big fish, they're strong fish. But when you hold up a cobia, it is a mean, feisty animal to have on your boat. It's not an easy fish to handle. Like, I have scars on my body from cobia. To me, the bay is an incredible natural resource with a rich human history, a rich natural history. There's so many interesting people I've met, in my journey on the bay. It's important for people to know about the issues that the bay is facing and learn about the issues that the bay is facing. But it's also important for people to learn how to love the bay. And learning to love the bay means getting your hands dirty and having these insanely fun experiences in the outdoors, in nature, that you remember for the rest of your life.
Day 7, the last trip of our journey. We couldn't think of a better fit than a day with one of our closest friends, exploring the eastern shore in the hopes of catching the bay's most iconic fish.
My name is Jonathan Bland. I grew up on the Chesapeake Bay. I'm a foreman for an environmental restoration company, and I'm hoping to become a Chesapeake Bay fishing guide. The striped bass is so special, and the striped bass is every man's fish. It's so cool that the same estuary, the Chesapeake Bay, can hold a striper that feeds like a bonefish and a striper that feeds like a largemouth bass, depending on where you find them. And I think they give these anglers in our region a little bit of something different, but it's the same species, so it kind of brings us all together as striper fishermen. When I was a fly fishing guide out here in Chesapeake National Park on the Snake River, it's catching these beautiful fine spot cutthroat trout and taking my guests out, enjoying, every trip and having these amazing experiences in a beautiful backdrop. But my heart was still in Maryland and on the Chesapeake Bay, spending my summers like I usually would, fishing for the diversity of life that we have, the crabs, the fish. I wanted to be chasing Spanish mackerel, I wanted to be catching red drum, I wanted to be going for rockfish, and I didn't have any of that out in Wyoming. It was at that point in my life, right out of college, that I realized I don't need to travel the world to find the most beautiful, picturesque area to live in or spend time in. It's right in my backyard, and I guess that's what the Chesapeake Bay means to me. It's home. It's where I belong.
From the quaint streams in central Pennsylvania and beyond, to the vast openness at the mouth of the bay, my brother and I found ourselves in awe at the variety of environments and species that all share the Chesapeake Bay watershed. As the seventh day came to a close, and we prepared to pack up and head back into our day-to-day lives, we reflected on what we learned during our journey. What makes this watershed so special is not just the landscapes, environments, or even fisheries, but perhaps most of all, it's the unique people that all call this place home.
All right. Man, I can't help but just smile every time I rewatch that. It just brings back some of the best memories for us being there, and just so many countless memories, like catching that 50-inch cobia halfway through the week and all of us screaming for joy because we know we just got great footage and had such an awesome time out there. But even the small stuff, I miss, and I remember when I watched that, like, having a small panic attack every time we turned the key, and the green machine, took 2 minutes to start, which was pretty much every time, by the way. But I just can't speak, more highly of the people we worked with on that project, of everyone we met, and how cool is it that we have that archived and we can kind of go back and revisit it whenever we want to relive it. So I would love to kind of talk a little bit. This slide's dedicated to some of the success behind the campaign as a whole, as well as the film. And again, I think these are just kind of worth celebrating and mentioning. So the film itself ended up being official selection for what's called the International Fly Fishing Film Festival. And if you check out this map on the upper right-hand corner of the screen, every single one of those pins is pretty much a physical theater where the film played on the big screen for IF4, or the International Fly Fishing Film Festival, which I still think is just the coolest thing ever, to just see how many theaters our film played at. But I think one of the coolest things is looking at the distribution. I mean, looking at how far south it goes up into Canada. Some viewings were in Alaska. There was a show in Iceland. Like, so many of these people had no idea what the Chesapeake Bay was. And a lot of them probably had, no idea what the Chesapeake Bay watershed was as well. And we pretty much, they have a connection to it now because of the film we made, which I just think is so cool. So The film also was an official selection, very fittingly, for the Annapolis and the Chesapeake Film Festivals. The 7-part video series is streaming on YouTube and Carbon TV, and I definitely suggest you go check it out. It's kind of the film you just watched, but separated, and each episode has more detail and more content. There are 20 episodes of the podcasts, and they can be listened to wherever you get your podcast. The winter edition of the 2023 Fly Fisher magazine was completely dedicated to the Chesapeake campaign. And on top of that, we created countless social media shorts with footage both from the series and the film that got hundreds of thousands of views. So overall, the campaign had over 1 million impressions, which means that all of those people throughout the world got to see a little bit of the fun, the beauty, and the diversity of the Chesapeake Bay watershed because of the story that we decided to tell. So, why does that matter? Unfortunately, as many of you know, a lot of times when you're communicating science to the broad public, cold hard facts and evidence just aren't enough. And they should be, but they're not. People need an emotional connection to a piece of information you're telling them. So we could have made a documentary maybe about the water quality of the Chesapeake Bay, or just about the state of the Chesapeake Bay and conservation, and maybe taken ourselves out and taken fly fishing out and just interviewed the experts. But instead, we picked an audience, and we decided that we knew we had the opportunity to connect that audience emotionally to the story. So we put adventure and fly fishing front and center, and we left conservation at the core. And I think it was that decision that led to the success of the campaign. And I think the beautiful thing is it made that core message all the more powerful. So if I had to distill that message down to a quote, it would be one of my favorites. We cannot protect something we do not love. We cannot love what we do not know, and we cannot know what we do not see. We wanted to inspire people to get out and connect with the watershed, connect with the environment. Because we understand that people aren't going to care about, and they're not going to want to protect something that they don't have their own connection to or that they don't know about. So the next time, before we're communicating our work, and we use all of the industry jargon and research, which is all important and has its time and place, we need to remember that people need a connection to what they're being told. Which leads us perfectly into the power of story here. So when I talk about this broader storytelling to the public, I'm not disregarding the fact that industry jargon research papers have their time and place. Of course they do. We completely rely on academic professionals like yourself to do the dirty work and the true research. All I'm talking about is ways to maximize the communication afterwards on a bigger scale. Stories emotionalize information, and if told correctly, they can bring depth and color to otherwise bland material, which allows people to connect with that material on a much more meaningful level. There's a reason why we've always told stories and why some stories have lasted thousands of years. They change the way we think. They help us to understand the world, and they impact our brains on a level that we still don't fully understand. Another helpful way to think about stories is as facts wrapped in emotion. And storytelling can be such a powerful tool to nurture engagement in science, which is why I wanted to end this presentation today talking about some simple tips or things that you can just keep in mind when it comes to the communication you do with your work on a daily basis. So these obviously don't just apply to filmmaking or visual storytelling. These apply if you're sending an email, creating a proposal, communicating with a contractor, literally communicating your work in any way. So the first thing I have on here is to understand your audience. And understanding your audience is essential because then you're able to kind of meet them where they are, and you're able to cater your message to them to make sure that it's relevant and engaging. Next up, I have to simplify, simplify, simplify. And as cheesy as it is, and I'm saying that 3 times, I do it because I think it's so important. I'm still amazed at every project we do at how much we need to refine and simplify our work before it reaches its end product. And a more simple and clear message is going to connect with a broader audience. And I would argue most of the time, it's going to give that audience a deeper understanding of what the message is. The next one here is super simple, and it's just to tell real stories. People love to connect and listen to real and personal stories, especially when they're relatable. And lastly, I have to focus on the why. And this kind of ties back to the idea that emotion and story are connected. A lot of people and organizations will focus on maybe how a project was done or who was involved, which are important parts for a well-rounded story, but I think people remember the why. I think it provides this deeper meaning and context and relevance. And a lot of times, the why is more connected to emotion. If you're talking about why you did a project or why a company exists. So with a lot of the work I do, kind of, at this point I do it subconsciously, but I almost always either start or end with the why, because in a lot of ways it ends up being more philosophical and kind of more emotion-driven than the other questions of who and how and where. So the next time you are, again, communicating to a classroom or writing an email or communicating your work in all of the ways I know you do every day, I challenge you to think story first. And maybe that's taking some of these just super simple cues and just keeping them in mind and maybe using one or two. Maybe that's including a little piece of emotion that you would normally leave out. And observe how people, or observe the difference in how people interact and engage with your work. So that's really all I've got. So thank you so much for, again, letting a communications and film guy kind of hijack the keynote presentation today. I hope you guys enjoyed the film, and I hope you at least got some value out of this and maybe even feel inspired to incorporate some storytelling techniques into the work you do. And I invite you to reach out to me as well, especially if you have questions surrounding digital content or storytelling for yourself or your own organization. My email's on the screen here, and I'm also more than happy to talk after. But thanks again, and I think we've got a quick Q&A session here to end things.
All right, thank you so much, Eric, for the after lunch pick-me-up. We do have some time for questions, so does anybody have any questions? Harper's Ferry.
You got it, Harper's Ferry. You can see that's the confluence of the Shenandoah and the Potomac. You can't see it too well, but there's a very distinct line in the middle there, which makes the photo cool. The Shenandoah is a lot murkier than the Potomac on that particular day. Yeah.
Of all the species you caught, what was your favorite?
Oof, that's the hard-hitting question.
Salted fresh.
I always have a soft spot for brook trout. Like, I would say that's my favorite fish. And a lot of people don't get it because normally they're about this big. And they're like, why are you messing with these little fish up in the mountains, you weirdo? But they just take you to some of the coolest places because I'm sure, as many of you know, they're an indicator species. So a lot of times you kind of have to go to this pristine forest wilderness to find them. So I would say that was probably my favorite if I had to pick. And that was one of the coolest days. And that was my first time kind of being in the Seneca Rocks area, which is definitely highly recommend checking that out. It's in West Virginia. It's a cool place.
Have you started filming the sequel?
Ooh, I think it was kind of a sequel, and I think we're maybe done with it here. But we definitely have a bunch of other projects that are happening. The one I'm most excited about, we've been working on for a little bit over a year now, and it's very different than this. It's actually a mountain lion conservation film. It's based in the Southwest. So we've been doing some travel to Arizona, New Mexico, a little bit in Texas, and that's just been an amazing experience. Working with both biologists and houndsmen to track the lions, and then we're collaring them for a study, and I get to kind of be a fly on the wall with my camera, which is pretty cool.
Anyone else? All righty, thank you, Eric.
Great, of course. Thank you so much.